All right. Hi everyone, good evening. This is Ishaan with the Collegian for Tattoo Talks, and today I'm joined by...
Kay Denmead.
So, let's just get into it. I love the outfit you're wearing today, by the way.
Thank you.
So, how many tattoos do you have? I see like a couple of them poking through.
Yeah, these two are probably my most visible ones. I also have a butterfly on my
Oh,
arm.
yeah.
I like this one. This one's my most recent one.
Mm-hmm.
I have a bat, like, on my sternum. And then I also have one on my leg. This is my koi fish, my big one.
Okay. So, we're re-recording this podcast because like the last interview, the audio was... So, yeah, I remember the last time you said that this was like cybersedualism inspired, the butterfly one.
Yeah.
And did the sternum one hurt? And you said that was your first tattoo as well,
Yeah,
right?
the sternum one was my first tattoo.
And you said it didn't hurt.
No, I didn't think it hurt at all. Actually, I feel like getting a tattoo is like a really interesting sensation that I personally find pleasant. I know a lot of people like, I mean, obviously like tattoos are famous for hurting, but I feel like it feels like kind of buzzy and fun.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I feel like, you have to be there. Like, a lot of people ask me what it's like to get a tattoo, and I'm like, it does hurt because blood does come out. But, like, you get used to it after a while. And, like, it is kind of a fun sensation, like, after a while. Because, like, once you start going there every now and then, and you're like, I'll just get this, I'll just get that. Everyone has, like, Pinterest library that they've got, like,
so
tattoo
true.
ideas stored up. Do you have any ideas that you want to get?
My next one is actually going to be in October. I'm planning on getting the Lover's like tarot card.
Oh, yeah.
I'm wearing it right now. I have like a necklace that has the tarot card on it, but I'm not going to get this version. I'm going to get, this is the Rider-Waite version, which is like the most famous tarot deck. It's like the original one. But I have this one design that's, it's like two skeletons. It's really cool. I like the design a lot.
Okay.
I'm planning on trying to work it into this arm with the butterfly, just because I feel like it's a little lonely over here. And I feel like I'm trying to balance out the big piece on my leg with like this.
Yeah, I love how through our conversations I've like come to know that you like to personify your tattoos. Because like the last time we talked, you said that you're a poet and that you wrote a poem about one of your tattoos.
Yes, I did.
So what was that about?
This is about the first tattoo that I ever got.
The sternum tattoo.
Yeah, and well, the first like period of time during my college experience was pretty rocky, and I was super excited and happy when I first got this tattoo. Like, it was a very special experience. And
you said that you got this right after you turned 18.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Which I graduated high school like a little young. I'm young for my grade. I graduated in May. I'm 22. I think most people graduate when they're 22, but I graduated when I was 21. Just how things happen to work out. I was born in California, and that's where I started going to school. So I think like cutoffs were a little different or something. Like, I don't really know, but that's just how it ended up working out.
I guess every state does things their own way.
Yeah, so that's how things ended up working out. But I wrote the poem about my bat tattoo. His name's Frankie. I named him Frankie because I thought it was cute.
It is cute.
Yeah, and I wrote it basically about how the tattoo like comforts me, and I gave it like a personality in that poem. I think it's published in the Scribe.
I write for the Scribe as well. It's
it's
for those who don't know, it's the magazine of the UMass College of Humanities and Fine Arts. It's really good. I got a bunch of my pictures in it the last semester, and I was super happy. Yeah. So I'm super proud of you for that. So how does the poem proceed, if you don't mind me asking?
It basically talks about I forget exactly all of the lines that I put in the poem, but I was talking about like the sound of the wings, and I was talking about how she like keeps me awake at night, but also that we keep each other company, like when we can't sleep.
Oh, that is so sweet. Does it have like a face?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the one defining thing with tattoos is, and I've spoken about this with a few of my guests before, like when we were talking about the sensation of getting a tattoo, it is, a pretty unique sensation, but once you get the tattoo, it's gone. And like once it heals up completely and, the itching and scabbing and whatever fades, like after a week, you sometimes forget that it's there. Like walking and like just going on about your day, it's hard because like I recently got a tattoo at the back of my neck, and it is so hard for me to remember that it's even there.
What did you get?
Oh sure, I can.
I'm curious.
I don't know if it's it's visible. Is it visible?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. So it is a cyber sigilism. It's
Yeah.
my first cyber sigil. I was super happy about this. I don't know if it's like clearly visible, but so it's from. I'm a huge fan of like cyberpunk, the cyberpunk genre.
Oh yeah.
I love that. Like I'm minoring in anthropology, and I kind of this is how I got into college because like I wrote a research on anthropology to get into college, and I was an economics major, and I was like dual majoring in econ and anthropology when I came in. So I've always been super into it, and so this is from a show I really like watching. It's called Altered Carbon. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I don't think so.
Do you know Anthony Mackie, the guy that plays the Falcon in the MCU?
Yes.
Okay, he's in that, and he does a fantastic job at like acting the part out. He plays the protagonist towards the second season, I think. So in the show, they invent a device that you can upload the human consciousness to, and essentially attain immortality. So that device is implanted at the base of your skull, like just like between a couple of vertebrae, and that is what I got on my back. Because
Cool.
I like the idea of being able to live forever and just being able to do whatever you can with life.
That's cool.
And I got a couple, because I'm a Hindu, so I got the last two lines of the Mahamrityunjay mantra, which is a verse dedicated to the god Shiva, and it's about immortality. It's asking Shiva to give us immortal life, and I feel like that's good. But what's your, as someone who is into biology, I feel like, and who is a full-blown biologist now, who's a scientist, this is like, I'm asking you as a complete outsider to the field, excuse me, do you think that the goal of biological sciences is to, I mean, it is to extend human life, and it is to, I mean, the medical sciences.
Yeah.
It is to extend life and to make life comfortable and like to eradicate diseases. But where do you think that ends? Do you think like the goal is to make immortality a thing?
I think probably, but I also think this is at least my interpretation. The medical sciences, especially like biotech and the pharmaceutical industry, are very fueled by money, and
That is true.
So I think just for the elite top people, probably.
That is true. That is actually a central part of the series that I was talking about. Like this woman who's a groundbreaking scientist, she invents these devices that you can implant into your skull and like upload the human consciousness to. And she wants this to be available to everyone in the human species, that everyone can, you know, just live out their dreams and, you know, explore the cosmos with infinite life. But because the society is corrupt and she's living in a post-corporate dystopia, the richest of the rich people, they monopolize that resource for themselves, and immortal life then becomes a commodity to be held on by the rich.
Yep. Which
So
is how I think it would play out in real life, probably, unfortunately.
that is sad. That's like a Black Mirror episode.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Which we've made a lot of progress.
I'll just like keep talking. Yeah.
We made a lot of progress with science and in the medical field in the last probably like 50 years or so, but I mean like just in general we've progressed a lot. But now we're focusing, there's a trend with human disease where before, like in like earlier human times, we were focused more on infectious disease. That was like the big problem. And then non-communicable diseases like heart disease and cancer became more of the issue. But now they're both kind of equal.
That makes a lot of sense.
So like there's high rates of both now instead of just one, which is unfortunate, and it also means that the medical field is needing to pivot a little bit to try and solve that problem, which I actually learned that in, I took a disease ecology class, really useful.
That makes a lot of sense. So we went from like trying to curtail pandemics to trying to like fix immunodeficient diseases. That's what you were saying. And now you were talking about CRISPR the last time we talked.
I was talking about CRISPR the last time we talked. CRISPR is cool. I think gene editing is really cool. I think gene editing probably will become more prevalent in the next XYZ amount of years. I do think we have some advancement that needs to be made before it's used a lot on humans, though, because The thing with CRISPR is that DNA is double-stranded, and when you use CRISPR, you're making a double-stranded break, and creating double-stranded breaks, you are taking advantage of like cell repair mechanisms. Depending on what you're doing with CRISPR, there's a lot of different things that you can do with CRISPR. But when a double-stranded break repairs itself, it's more likely to make errors than if you make a single-stranded break.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for medical purposes, we're trying to figure out ways to alter the human genome by making only one-strand breaks instead of double-stranded breaks. Just because when you get errors in the genome, depending, some errors might not do anything. They might just be like do nothing. But gene toxicity is a big problem with gene editing, which is also really scary. So we're leaning more towards it. Right now, I think the only commercially available, like FDA approved, gene editing like treatments for disease, I think is for sickle cell anemia, and I think that like just got approved like 6 months ago. Bluebird Bio, I think. I don't know.
I heard that a lot of patents are being filed at CRISPR, like as we speak.
Yeah, CRISPR is used a lot in animals, for example. I said this before. For my job, I work with knockout mice, which are made with CRISPR.
Wow, that is super interesting. So, how do you feel about your job?
I love my job.
And you got it recently as well.
I did get it recently. I
So
started in July.
congratulations.
Thank you.
And it's, we were talking about this, like that might be like a point of familiarity because you're working at the institution that you graduated from and that you have a lot of memories associated with.
Yeah.
So how does that feel?
It's definitely interesting because I feel like I'm seeing spaces that I'm familiar with in a different perspective.
Oh, okay.
It's also kind of strange just because I've been here for a while now, but like I love this job so much. I work with embryos. I work with mouse embryos, which is so cool. I love my job. I love showing up every single day. Like I get excited to be there, and I think that's a really like undervalued part of adult life.
That is true.
I know a lot of people separate like their job and their daily life and are like,
Work-life balance.
Yeah, they're like, oh, like it's just my 9 to 5. Like I don't need to like it that much. Like I can do what I like outside of work. But I feel like the way I feel, I would be miserable if I didn't like what I did for work. I need to like it.
I get that.
Well, because like 9 to 5 is so much of your time. Like when you think about it, like there's not that much time outside of that.
That is true. And like your career is gonna form like such a huge chunk of your life as well.
Yeah.
Like it's until 60, until you retire presumably, or if you voluntarily retire before that. But yeah, I cannot imagine like being in a field that I don't like for more than a few years, and even then I would be in it just for the express purpose of like setting myself up financially, and then I can leave to do whatever.
Yeah. And like I love science. I love learning. It just feels like there's so much to do all the time, and I like that. I also just really love working with embryos. I feel like the formation of life is so interesting, especially because I work with really early stage embryos. So even though I'm working with mouse embryos, it's applicable to human development because
they're pretty similar, like in terms of gene.
Up till a certain point, it's the same.
Okay.
So it's applicable definitely to like human research. I want to be a genetic counselor when I'm older, and I think probably what I'll specialize in will be prenatal type stuff, embryology type things.
That is going to be very helpful.
Yeah.
In sciences.
It also is going to be, I've heard people talk about like people using like gene editing technology on children, which is interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of it is hearsay as well.
A lot of it's hearsay for sure.
People don't understand what they're talking about, and so I wanna know from you what like that is gonna be like. Like, can you is it gonna be like a lot of people liken that to what's the word?
Eugenics.
Eugenics, yes.
Yeah. I feel like it's easy to teeter into that category.
It is.
With altering. Because we've talked about, I've learned in like a couple of different science classes about like designer babies and like what that would look like. And it's like things that we value now almost like wouldn't be valuable anymore. We would just keep striving for levels of perfection that are just so difficult for humans to achieve. It puts a lot of pressure on people also.
That's true.
And it's like, as long as a child is healthy, does it really matter?
That is true. I mean, I guess it makes sense. And even then,
it's like, there's still like a level of eugenics involved even in that statement. So I don't know.
That is true. I mean, like,
sure.
I guess, and it is a pretty interesting moral argument as well, moral and ethical, that, like, okay, where do you stop? Like, you can, removing immunodeficiencies from your children and like, um, problems related to, mutations and inbreeding and something like that.
Yeah.
You remove that, sure, but at what point? And it's so weird because preferences regarding, what is deemed acceptable and isn't, they're often, more often than not, they're rooted in racism.
Yep.
And they're also cyclical as well because nobody like people like it's like I was watching this video last night that how certain names are more popular in one
Yeah.
era and like then they become so saturated that everyone starts naming their children like Amanda or something like that. And then people stop naming their children that because it's an oversaturated trend and after a while the name just falls out of fashion.
Yep.
So it's so weird how that might even become sort of a fashion statement.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Because also, like, even from the standpoint of, like, quote unquote, like, designer babies, like, making somebody taller or giving them a certain hair or eye color or whatever. Hair and eye color is a little bit more simple, but, like, most things about a person are genetically more complicated than just changing one thing. So I don't even know if that would be, like, it'd be really difficult. And also, like, how do you know that, like, maybe they'll grow up and they'll be really tall and they'll be like, man, I wish I wasn't so tall.
Yeah, that is true.
Like, it takes away somebody's... I don't know. Then again, I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about this topic.
I mean, yeah, it is uncharted territory. It's like, I think AI gets a lot of, like, limelight in terms of, like, discussion, but, like, people rarely talk about this.
Yeah.
And we're headed towards this, like, crossroads in biology as quickly as we are in the computer sciences, but, like, gene editing and, like, designer babies, this topic doesn't like get nearly as much attention in the media as say AI.
For sure.
I feel like sensationalism is more geared towards the other one, which I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know. I also feel like I would love to know more about this topic. Like, I would love to know more about, like, psychology behind things and, like, the effects that would have on people, I guess. Because even though I understand the science behind it more, I am not a psychologist. I don't know a lot about the more ethical and moral side of that as well. Like, the more academically structured arguments. I know how I, like, my instinct opinions might be, but I'm not super educated on that part of the conversation.
That's why I started this podcast, as I was telling you, that I can, talk to people with similar interests, but at the same time talk to people with different interests, so I can get to know people, I can make we're it's so interesting how we started this conversation with tattoos and now we've like veered on to something so different. And I feel like there's such a great conversation started for that.
Yeah.
So coming back to that topic, do you think you've had some interesting conversations, like people approaching you about your tattoos and like, and you said that you have one default tattoo artist that you like going to because you trust her.
Yes.
So I feel like tattoo artists are equivalent to barbers in a certain way, or hairdressers.
Yeah.
Because like people sit there for quite a while where they're just doing their job, and people and it's kind of like part of their job description to like be sort of unpaid therapists or like paid therapists, but like you don't pay them for therapy.
Yeah.
Like they're the center of the town when it comes to the gossip, and sometimes they're giving you life advice and stuff like that. So do you think you've had any interesting conversations with your tattoo artist?
Oh,
like,
yeah,
what's
for
your
sure.
relationship like with them?
I feel like we're like friendly for sure, and like she knows a lot about my life, because I mean, like when you're sitting for like a 6-hour piece, you're talking to somebody for 6 hours. I mean, it's not like we're talking like nonstop the whole time. I mean, like my voice would get very sore.
It's hard to.
But yeah, she's so nice. We have the same middle name, which is interesting.
Wow, that is so nice.
Which isn't super. It's not like a super common middle name. My middle name's Elaine, which I guess isn't a super rare middle name, but it's not super common either.
That just reminds me of the ABBA song.
Yeah, it's a pretty like old-fashioned name. But I just think that's interesting. She had a kid not that long ago, so she tells me a lot about like her baby and her family life and stuff, and I think it's just really sweet to like learn about the person who's doing your art. Like, she's putting art on your body. Like, I want to know about her.
Yeah. Because, like, as we were also talking about that art on your body, that's really beautiful in more ways than one, like more than just a superficial kind of way, because it symbolizes a lot to you.
Yeah.
And several years from now, it's going to symbolize to you the kind of person you were.
Yeah.
But one underappreciated and, like, not enough talked about aspect of that is that, it's being done by someone. It's being put on your body by someone. And to a lot of people, it represents and it symbolizes, their relationship with their tattoo artist. Or like, it's certainly like my tattoos do tell me like, okay, when I got this tattoo or when I got this tattoo, how was I feeling that day? Like, on one instance, I was just like super roided up on caffeine because I was nervous getting my first tattoo. Or another instance, like someone going to the tattoo artist might be like, I was super hungover that day. So it reminds you, it's a time capsule.
Yeah, for sure.
So how do you think your tattoos are like holding up as like a time capsule of who you were?
Yeah, I think all of them, I don't regret any of my tattoos. Like, I would just say, like, people are always like, oh, you shouldn't get tattoos when you're, like, XYZ age, because, like, in a few years you're going to regret them. I feel like I would never regret any of my tattoos because, like you said, it reminds you of who you were in that time. So it's like, even if I might not, like, love it aesthetically anymore, I can appreciate who I was at that period of time. So, like, I'm always going to love all of my tattoos.
And what inspired you aesthetically during that period of time?
Yeah, for sure. And
because art and inspiration, I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No, you're good.
It's constantly evolving. Like, change is the only constant. And like, and you're a mixed media artist, I'm a mixed media artist. And like, as we grow older, our inspirations change. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Like, when I read, like, poems that I wrote, like, when I was 18 versus a poem that I wrote yesterday, like, they're very, very different. Like, my voice might still be similar. Like, you can maybe tell if the same person wrote it, but, like, the inspirations are different, the word choice is different. Like, it's definitely not the same.
I understand that. And it is pretty interesting as well, like, how it is essentially like a diary entry on your body. And I think that's a beautiful aspect of it.
I agree.
We were also talking about the how, like, I follow a bunch of tattoo artists, and how one of them described tattoos as one's chosen armor.
Yeah.
Like, you go out in the world with, something that you're comfortable on your body. And there's also, like, the tropes associated with, like, the movie Memento Mori, where, like, the person, I think, had retrograde amnesia or something, and he used to get tattoos to remind him of what was going on in his life. So, and even just, like, for a regular, everyday person, it's, you look good, you feel good.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's why I dress the way I do, that's why you dress the way you do, and it just makes us confident in our own skin, in our chosen skin, because, like, it's, I guess, body dysmorphia is a big, like, people feel that. Yeah. And, like, because a lot of us don't really get to choose the features we were born with, and we just have to, learn to live with them, and it's kind of a lottery, like, okay, I got lucky that I'm tall, and I'm pretty grateful for that. But, there's other features of my body that I'm like, you know what, I got a bit of muffin top today, and, like, I need to lose weight or something like that. But as long as I'm dressing well, and that's completely under my control, because, I pick out my outfits every single day, and the art that is on my body that is a direct representation of what inspires me, I feel like that empowers me to go about my day, in, like, high spirits.
I definitely agree. I feel like my tattoos are, I definitely have a lot of self-confidence issues, which is really, really interesting, because I feel like when you dress, like, eccentrically, people just assume that, like, you're super confident. Like, I get that very often. But
I get that as well.
But, like, I don't know if that I would necessarily say I'm confident. I would say I'm pretty blunt. Like, I'm a pretty blunt person, not in a mean way.
I don't get that impression at all.
Yeah, no. I just, I'm definitely a forward communicator. Like, I always say how I feel. And I feel like with how I present myself, it's just how I like to be. Like, I like the art of this. Like, doing my makeup every day, like, that's art to me. Dressing up, it's art to me.
It absolutely is.
Yeah, and I feel like that is fun for me. Like, that activity is fun. And it's like a wearable art piece, which I find fun. But my tattoos are definitely the part of, like, my physical body that makes me feel the best about myself.
And tattoos also have that, because, like, makeup, as we were talking about, it is an art form, definitely. Because, in both cases with tattoos and makeup, you're essentially seeing your body as a canvas.
Yeah.
And I associate with that, definitely. But there's also the aspect of permanence associated with tattoos. Like, makeup is something that you put on your face every single day, and then you wash it off the next day, and then you put on a new layer the next day. And you can do it differently every single day depending on how you're going to feel, like how you're feeling, or like you can use different colors, you can use different contours. But tattoos, I feel like a lot of people don't, like, a lot of people who are into the idea of tattoos, they shy away from them just because they're going to be there forever. Unless and until they get removal surgery, laser surgery, which is like super expensive, and like nobody gets that anyway. So I feel like, what would you like to say to people who feel like that is, that just puts too much pressure on your psyche, even like talking about tattoos, like the permanence associated with it?
Yeah, but like I love that my tattoos are permanent. I love that, like, because I always get sad when I have to wash my makeup off. It's like,
that is interesting.
It can't, like, the art, it is nice though, because it's like I can reuse the canvas again the next day. But like with my tattoos, it's like I get to look at those and appreciate those every single day, and that's a gift to me. Like, that's not scary, that's a blessing. That's just how I feel about it.
That is such a nice way of looking at it.
Yeah.
And like tattoos that, like your sternum tattoo, that aren't visible to like people, they're still visible to you.
Yeah.
Like every single morning you wake up and you look at yourself in the mirror, and like that is intimate to you. Mm-hmm. And you personified that is intimate to you, that is like essentially as your like your comfort character.
Yeah.
And you wake up and it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
I feel like that's why I got my neck tattoo, because I wanted something that I'm not like showing to the world, but I just know consciously that it's there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, a lot of people also like getting tattoos just for the express purpose of like showing them off to the world.
I think it's also totally fine. Like, I feel like people have this like perception that like if you're doing something to like show it off, then it's like, then that's not like a good reason. But I feel like that's a great reason. Like, I mean, you should be proud of the art that's on your body. I mean, I think that's cool. I mean, like, I want to see other people's tattoos.
That's
so like,
true.
Like, please show me your tattoos.
I feel
That's
like,
how I feel.
as you were saying, that tattoos are such a great conversation starter. Like, I've often like gone up to people and been like, "Whoa, that's a cool tattoo. Like, what does it mean?" And I feel like that is what inspired me to like start this podcast as well, because like oftentimes I'm just like sitting somewhere in the dining hall or someplace minding my own business, and I've had people come up to me in a really nice, like non-invasive way, and they're like, "I love your tattoos. What do they mean?" And I feel like a lot of people have this impression, people that don't have tattoos, that, tattooed people put thought behind their tattoos, thought into their tattoos. So what do you think about that? Like, what thought have you put into your tattoos? What do they symbolize to you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say most of my tattoos have some kind of meaning, but some of them are just because I like the way it look. Like, these, like, floral pieces I have on my collarbones, those don't really have any meaning. I just think they look cool.
Which is a perfectly fine
yeah,
reason
which is
to
a
get
good
tattoos.
reason.
Yeah.
And, like, the bat that I have down here, I literally just picked because I like the design, but it's become, like, a comfort to me over time. Because, like, that's not necessarily visible, like, almost ever. But I get to know that that's there, and it feels comforting to me. And I love bats. I think bats are such cool creatures. I've written research papers on bats. They're definitely a very underappreciated species, just because a lot of people are scared of them. But I think they're really cool. I mean, they're pollinators, which is also cool.
I did not know that.
Yeah, they're pollinators. And they eat, like, insects that are harmful. I just think bats are really cool. The butterfly that I have on my arm is for my dad. And the tattoo that I have down here, that's my, like, koi fish tattoo, my, like, big tattoo. That one is also partially for my dad.
Do you want to show the koi fish on camera?
I don't know if I can.
think.
Yeah, you can.
I think I can like aim the camera down.
It's down here. It goes
Okay.
like all the way up. This one's
Okay.
definitely my biggest tattoo.
Let me just like angle the camera back up again.
Yeah. That one is.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah, that one's got a lot of significance to me. It's. The koi fish remind me of when I was younger, my grandparents who live in California, which is where I was born, but I moved around a lot when I was a kid. But they had a koi fish in their backyard, so it reminds me of my grandparents, and I don't get to see them very often, so it's nice to be reminded of them.
That is so sweet.
Yeah, the koi fish also remind me of my sister, because my twin sister, we're identical. She loves fish. She's like obsessed with fish. She had like an aquarium, like she knows everything about fish. She just likes marine things, so it reminds me of her. And it also reminds me of the Pisces symbol.
Is she into biology as well?
She's not actually,
Okay.
but she did actually say that like she wished that she had done biology because she just like finds the concepts interesting. But the symbol reminds me of Pisces, and a lot of people in my life have been Pisces. So like my dad was Pisces, my partner's a Pisces, my best friends in my life have been Pisces. Like I'm not a Pisces, but I just think Pisces are cool. Like,
And
I've
we were
had a lot
talking
of-
about that. I'm also a Pisces, and you
Yeah.
said that that's like completely coincidental. That so many people in your life that are of value, like your partner and your dad, and a lot of your friends. That is completely like it's not even like out of choice. It's completely coincidental
Yeah.
that you're Pisces.
Yeah, and because my dad like passed away when I was so young, I just find it nice to have like a reminder of him like every day with me.
Like, are you comfortable talking about it?
Yeah, I'm comfortable talking about that. He died when I was 7 from liver cancer, and when I was that young, I didn't really understand like what death meant. I mean, like I have a lot of regrets, obviously, about like when I was younger. I wish I'd understood better, so that I could have like asked him more things.
But it's again not your fault.
Yeah, because I was 7.
Yeah.
But I really love his story, and I like sharing it with people. He died from liver cancer, which I forget if I said that already. But he died from liver cancer, and when he died is actually his second time getting liver cancer. But he got liver cancer from hepatitis C,
Mhm.
which he was a conscientious objector during the Vietnam War. So he was a medic, and after that he ended up going to medical school and becoming like an actual doctor. And he was anti-war, and he really wanted to help people. Was basically his whole. He was a pacifist, and like a big part of his life was that he wanted to help people. So like being a doctor was the perfect career path for him. And he was working in a hospital in an area that was having difficulty supplying doctors, because it was in an area that had a lot of crime and like drug addicts. So lots of doctors were like, I don't want to work there. But he wanted to work there. Like he was like, that sounds great. Like I would love to help people, and I would love to be like able to assist the community in that way.
And that was purely because of the stigma associated with
Yeah,
like
purely
being-
because of the stigma associated with like drugs and drug users.
Yeah, because they tend to be like low-income communities as well, and like people of color, and because, especially during like the Reagan administration and all of
Yeah.
that, drugs were supplied directly to destabilize these communities.
Yep.
Not to get political, but
We
like
can get political.
no, we can get political, but yeah, it's. I feel like that says a lot about your dad, like his character, that he saw people as people, regardless of, who they came across to be.
Yeah.
And that he, reached out to them and like he understood everything about their situation.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of things that I like didn't get to know about my dad and his character just because I was so young. But when he was working at that hospital back in this was in the 70s, so PPE, like personal protective equipment, like gloves and like goggles and whatever, like all that stuff wasn't as accessible to doctors. So he was working a shift, I think, at the emergency department, and a woman came in and he helped her give birth. And during that process, I mean, there's a lot of blood involved.
Yeah,
and
of course.
he got it in his eyes.
Oh.
So he ended up getting hepatitis C from that.
And he got cancer from that, you were saying.
Yeah, which it's actually really rare to get cancer from hepatitis C. Like now, hepatitis C is like a totally inconsequential diagnosis. Like there's a drug you can take and it literally just makes it go away, which is crazy considering that my dad died in 2010 from cancer caused by hepatitis C. I think it's like a really, really small percentage of people who get hep C end up getting liver cancer, and he actually got it twice. So I think he was just unlucky, unfortunately. But he never like had any regrets about that. Like, and I don't know, I just thought that was like really noble. He was always very like, he was just a very caring and conscious man. But then at the same time, it's like, it's funny that I got like the tattoo like in remembrance of him, because I also like since he knew he was gonna die before he died, it was probably like a 6-month period like before he actually died, where he was in hospice. He made like a list of stuff that he did and didn't want for my sister and he was like, no dating until 16, like no tattoos, no piercings.
No tattoos, no piercings.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, well I got a tattoo for you. Which like obviously I didn't do. He wanted me to play guitar or piano, which I don't play guitar. I play piano a little bit. I'm mostly a singer though. I think.
Yeah. That's how I met you as well, because like I was trying out for the choir that you sang in.
Yeah. And he also wanted me to do Irish dancing until I was like, because I Irish danced when I was a kid. He wanted me to do it until I was like, I don't even remember, maybe like 14 or 15.
So you wanted to continue with something that you like picked up as a kid.
Yeah. Which I ended up not being able to because we couldn't afford it. I grew up in like a low income family after he passed away, because after that my mom was trying to raise 2 kids on her own, like, and she didn't have that much a career experience either, so it was like we ended up just living off the government after he died, because it was a lot of work for her to take care of 2 kids by herself.
Which is commendable as well.
Yeah, very commendable. My mom's a very powerful woman. And she sacrificed a lot for us growing up. And I mean, obviously, like, getting into college was really difficult because of that also. Just because, like, going to state school, I thought that I would meet a lot more people who were, like, financially disadvantaged, but that was definitely not the case for me. I don't know if it was just, like, the circles of people who I was interacting with. And also because I feel like people have, like, preconceived notions about, like, what somebody who's struggling, like, looks like, and I don't look like that. So it's, like, people are always, like, surprised.
But I mean, again, this is the... And I think, you know, there's ways to look fashionable without, like, spending a ton on fashion.
So true, yeah.
And I think the whole notion of, like, spending on overpriced goods just to look a certain way is too overdone.
I agree.
And it just adds to, like, consumerism and, like, you know, overconsumption and, like, the excesses of capitalism. But coming from that background, that must have, you know, played a big part in your belief system.
Oh, yeah, I think so. But, it's like, when you've had a life where you've experienced things that are hard, I feel like it can kind of go in one of 2 directions, where you feel like you really want to, like, I don't want anybody else to ever feel this way, and then I want everyone else to feel this way, kind of vibe, if that makes sense. And I've definitely met people who, like, trauma sometimes can make you bitter just because of trauma response, which, not to say that's anybody's fault. It's just different people experience trauma in different ways. And I've definitely, like, experienced a lot. I feel like also my tattoos have helped me a lot to deal with traumatic experiences, because it's like, I'll be having a really difficult time, like, when I got the butterfly done, actually, this was my only tattoo that I feel like it's not that I regret it at all, it's just that the style doesn't super match the rest of my tattoos, but I was desperate to get a tattoo at this time, because, I think I talked about this before, my friend...
Again, this is a safe space,
yeah.
like, you can ask me to cut anything out later, and that's completely fine as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, anything that you're fine with saying on camera, you know, is completely up to you.
I feel like I like being an open book. I just want other people to know that, like, they're not alone in anything difficult they've experienced.
That's great.
Yeah, I had a friend who, she was, like, one of the only people who I still talk to from high school. She took her own life really unexpectedly in 2022, and after that was, like, the darkest period of my life. Just because, like, I was at an age where I could, like, process death and, like, understand. Like, my dad dying was really impactful for me as a kid, but, like, it was, like, a really prolonged grieving period, because it was, like, I understood it more when I was older, if that makes sense.
So it made you reevaluate, like, your dad dying as well.
Yeah, so I was feeling, like, all of those feelings at once, and it was, like, it was a really awful period of life, and I was desperate to get a tattoo, because I was like, I need something.
Yeah, something to look forward to, something, like, to light up that time in your life.
I needed something to look forward to, and the tattoo definitely gave me that experience. Which is also how I felt about this one, too, like the koi fish. It gave me something to look forward to during a period of time that was a little bit dark for me. And I'm really grateful to, like, tattoos for being able to, like, help me get through those really dark periods of time. I think a lot of people feel that way about tattoos.
A lot of people that do get tattoos, yeah, they do feel that way about tattoos, because, like, it's novelty.
Yeah.
It's something that you get that's new in your life, and, you know, it takes away from that rut every single day, that, you know, day in, day out of depression. Because I was clinically depressed for the past few years, and I'm coming out of that right now. I'm really, you know, working on myself. I'm pretty happy about that. And I gave myself a few goals to work on these past few months. And I just told myself that I'm going to get a tattoo at the end of it. And it's going to be, like, my reward to myself. Mm-hmm. And that was the tattoo at the back, because, you know, immortality and all, that's what it symbolizes. And I felt like that would carry a deeper meaning, because I came out of a phase when life was feeling very mortal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like that gives you, you know, like, a light at the end of the tunnel, essentially.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. During dark periods, it's really easy to feel like there's just nothing good to look forward to in life, and I feel like tattoos give me something to look forward to. I'm sure, like, even people who aren't into tattoos, like, give themselves things like that. Like, I know people are like...
Yeah, it doesn't have to be tattoos necessarily.
Like, people are like, oh, I look forward to, like, getting home to see my cat, or, like, I look forward to, like, seeing my mom, or, like, something like that, I don't know. or I look forward to seeing my friend, or I look forward to just being at home by myself and getting to read a book, or something like that. Something that's comforting.
Yeah, but that's what I was about to talk about as well. That it's all bound together by this feeling of love and adoration towards this one thing, and not to say that we use those things as crutches during a dark time, but like I don't even think there's anything bad with using something as a crutch.
I absolutely agree. I feel like if you're in such a dark period of time, anything that makes you feel happy at all is absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that's a crutch. I feel like that's just trying to find any light in the dark.
Yeah, exactly. It's your comfort space.
Yeah.
It's your comfort zone, and like it doesn't even have to be, your comfort zone doesn't even literally have to be like a room where you can go to feel one with your own company. It's like something you look at in the mirror, and I remember my self-image went really down in the dumps when I was depressed as well. Like I used to look at myself and I used to be like, I look like, and you feel like you feel like, and I think tattoos, because they just looked the same throughout, that helped me because if it felt like a constant that was on my skin and that was like it was staying with me, but at the same time it was it was unchanging and it retained its form, and it in some ways it conveyed to me that I could retain my sanity through a trying time.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it's also just it's really easy, I feel like, to lose track of, like, connection to, like, yourself in
That's
dark
true.
periods of time, and I feel like it helps really to, like, it's grounding, I feel, almost. Which I know a lot of people, like, ground themselves in different ways, but for me, I feel like tattoos are a good way of grounding.
Another thing that happened was, like when you're depressed, time feels like it's just flying past. Like, I remember I had a really skewed concept of time. Some weeks felt like they were just like flying past, and some weeks felt like, they were an eternity. And just having something that is a constant feels just more equalizing in all of that. Because, like, I get, like, for me, tattoos and, like, some things that I would see on a daily basis, like my own face in the mirror, and, like, a few trinkets on my study table and stuff like that. They used to give me this frame of reference with which I could, like, go about my day.
Yeah, I agree. It was just, when everything feels out of control, it's nice to have something that feels in control.
Exactly. When everything feels out of control, it's nice to have something that is completely in your control. And, like, yeah, it's something you can look forward to, and it's something that you attach meaning with. It's amazing. How do you think all your tattoos so far are like a representation of you?
I make all of my tattoos in definitely a very, like, witchy style. I wouldn't necessarily consider myself religious at this point in time in my life, but I would definitely consider myself, like, a spiritual person.
And you were talking about your
Yeah.
experiences with spirituality as well.
Which I think also has some, like, stigma to it when you're a scientist. Because, like, as a scientist, people are like, but everything you believe has to be super logical.
Yeah.
But the way I feel is I literally don't care if what I believe in is real or not. As long as it makes me feel happy, it doesn't matter if it's real or not. That's how I
Yeah.
personally feel.
Because, like, you were talking about horoscopes as well, and, like,
Yeah.
as a scientifically grounded person, you know that that has no basis in reality. But at the same time, I feel like growing up, my mom had that mindset with respect to horoscopes that, okay, if I pull up the newspaper in the morning and I see the horoscope section, and she's a Pisces, I'm a Pisces, if there's something good written in the Pisces section, then I'm going to believe it.
Yeah.
If it's something, I'm not going to believe it.
Yeah.
Whatever there is that I see in my day that makes me happy, I'm just going to take it in.
Exactly. That's exactly how I feel. Because it's like, anything, like I said, like, it doesn't even matter if anything's real or not. Like, I don't know if I believe if ghosts are real, for example, but believing they're real makes it's so much more fun than thinking they're not real. So I'm like,
That's true.
I'm just gonna treat it like it is, I guess.
And I feel like a lot of the questions that science is trying to answer, like, okay, what happens when we go to sleep, or like, what's the nature of consciousness, or like, what happens when we die,
Mm-hmm.
or where exactly is the consciousness in our brain? Is it even in our brain?
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of those questions paint such a picture of, they're this big open canvas that we can fill in.
Yeah.
And until science fills it in with like actual concrete answers, that leaves a lot of room for extrapolation and like just creativity.
Yeah, and like nobody's.
We can fill that up with stories.
Yeah, you can fill it with whatever you want. As long as you're not hurting anybody else, then I see no reason to why people shouldn't be able to believe whatever they want.
Yeah.
Like.
Unless you're not like spreading misinformation.
Yeah. That's kind of where I was going with like not hurting people, because I've definitely have like people use religion sometimes as like a way to oppress others, which I think is not good. Like you can believe whatever you want, obviously, and that's good if it gives you comfort. Like I'm glad that people have that kind of space, but there's no reason to make other people feel bad for not believing the same things that you do.
Oh, absolutely. Like I feel like being like just like believing in a higher power has got me through some of my toughest days in life, because just the fact that I believe that okay, things will eventually go my way, that karma is real, that I put all this effort in and I will get a good fruit out of it, and something good will happen to me eventually. I will run into good people, like-minded people eventually. It keeps me going because it reaffirms the belief that there is some structure to the universe.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like my dad was a very spiritual guy, and I talked about this before. Like I grew up like half Hindu, half Christian. It was kind of like a strange mix. We would go to temple.
And they are different philosophies.
Yeah, very different. So it was very confusing as a child.
Polytheistic versus monotheistic.
Yeah, it was definitely strange. But like we would go to temple and church, and I went to we were Lutheran, so I would go to I went to Lutheran schools and stuff, which was definitely very interesting. So I received a lot of mixed messages, but just the community that was created, especially at temple, was really, really comforting. Like I still talk to people. Like they might not know that much about me, but they're like, oh, I remember you from when you were little and you used to come to temple. Like you were so cute with your little Irish dancing or whatever. That's really comforting.
Because in places like that, you really form no strings attached relationships.
Yeah.
I feel like people don't expect anything out of you and outside of just a connection.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the most surreal experiences I've had was in a temple where I'm the music flowing into me and around me, and I just feel like everything around me is reverberating.
Yeah.
And because we're so jacked into our phones all the time, my dopamine receptors feel like they're just fried to 11.
I feel that way so much. I've said this before, I actually hate being on my phone. I wish I could live without it and that it wasn't necessary to live with, because I feel like it makes life feel so much worse.
The Industrial Revolution and its consequences.
Like you said, it's my dopamine receptors just feel fried all the time.
Yeah.
And when you're hanging out with people and they're just it feels like they're not even there. They're just on their phones. I'm please.
Yeah.
Put down your phone for 2 seconds.
I'm how am I supposed to focus on this conversation? Where the f is the Subway Surfers gameplay, dude?
Yeah.
Where's the subtitles?
Yeah. Which is why I'm I try and not be on my phone as much as I can. And also just because I have really intense self-esteem problems, it's also really difficult on social media to not compare yourself to other people.
Absolutely.
So it's and when you're looking at social media, it's most of that stuff isn't even real.
That is true.
Either it's the best of the best day with the best angle, the best lighting, or it's photoshopped or whatever it might be. It's just not
Nobody
great.
wakes up like that.
And even if it was totally 100% real, you're not the same as other people. So it's you shouldn't hold yourself to the standard of others, if that makes sense.
I feel social media also, there's the echo chamber problem, definitely, but also the fact that it's faceless.
Oh yeah.
People can just go on there and just be this version of themselves that they just wouldn't ever be in real life.
Yeah.
Just demeaning other people for being. Racism is so rampant on social media. It's so hard to be an Indian on Instagram and Reddit and for. A lot of these stereotypes come from 4chan, I believe, but that is a cesspit of the internet. That website, but it is so hard for me personally. I formed a lot of my notions about, especially coming abroad as an international student. It was, even though I've always been fluent in English, I've grown up in a pretty, a cosmopolitan household. I was raised in an English medium school. My mom is an interpreter. And even then, it was just coming here. I didn't know how the cultural differences would be. And, cultural shocks, as you call them. My accent is different even now, and like it code switches really frequently, and I have to like catch myself in the middle of like talking to like be like, okay, I can speak a little more slowly, and like I can think before I speak, because sometimes I start rambling. But I feel like I didn't really have a good idea of what I'm supposed to expect when I interact with people over here in a different country. And a lot of those notions I just formed off of the internet. And just the way, people who look like me are portrayed on the internet, I feel like it's so weirdly, it's become so weirdly acceptable to just like bash on Indians these days on the internet. I don't understand why. Um, I let it like form like the backbone of my self-esteem for a while. It was that experience, but I feel like after a while you just have to tell yourself that nobody in real life acts like that.
Yeah. And I mean, even if, like, most of the time when you interact with people in real life, they're not trying to hurt you.
Yeah.
But, I mean, sometimes they are.
Yeah, sometimes.
But, like, I actually had this experience literally last night. My housemates were, like, all talking, and I said something about, like, how, like, I'm involved in the hardcore scene here, and the hardcore scene is very male-dominated and pretty, like, violence-forward.
That is true.
And even though I'm a pacifist and I don't agree with hurting other people.
That is the other place I know you from, the
Yeah,
hardcore scene, because like we go to a lot of concerts, like like we have a lot of shows in common.
Yeah, which I love going. I love the style of music. I love the way that it sounds. I like moshing. I feel like it like gets that energy out.
It's super fun.
And hardcore moshing is like a different style than like moshing at like a Drake concert or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that.
Like I've said that before, and people are like, oh yeah, like I love moshing. I love going to like
it's not the same.
Kendrick Lamar, and I'm like, not the same vibe.
Not the same
Like when
vibe.
people are like, no karate allowed in the pit. Like hardcore moshing is karate in the pit. Like people are hitting each other on purpose. And I was like I interact with that space, I feel like, in a little bit of an unhealthy way, just because it gives me like a sense of gender euphoria, because I feel labels are kind of hard. I always just say like gender queer, but like gender fluid. Like I switch between feeling masc and femme pretty often. I mean, today I'm dressed pretty femme. I feel pretty femme today. But like I said to my housemate like last night, like, or I guess he overheard. I was like, oh, like I need to figure out a way to interact with the hardcore scene in a way that's more healthy, because it turns out there's different ways of expressing gender feelings that are more positive than like hitting each other. And he was like, wait, I didn't even realize that like you used like they them or like other pronouns. Like I just thought I just have been using she her. I feel so bad. And I was like, I feel like I've been pretty open about it. I don't know. It just like, but he was like so apologetic, and like he was like, I'm so sorry.
I mean, it's good. At least they were willing to learn.
Yeah, I am glad he was pretty open-minded.
But I feel like, and we were talking about this before, I feel like people place a lot of undue emphasis on other people's orientations and sexualities, much in the same way that they place a lot of undue emphasis on, where they're from, their race, their race, their background. Because I feel like that's a really small part of who we are.
Yeah.
How it's, and to a lot of people it's really private who they want to see intimately, and who they lean towards, and why does that have to be relevant in like how someone perceives me in like a professional context?
Yeah.
I mean, from the purposes of inclusion, I understand that, but like from the perspective of how someone interacts with someone else.
Yeah, like if I'm interacting with somebody at like a coffee shop, like why does it matter? Like my perception about their gender or sexuality or anything about them really doesn't really matter in that context.
Yeah.
Like
it's pretty irrelevant, because at the same, like, you're not trying to pursue them romantically. Mm-hmm. You're just like trying to have a nice, friendly, platonic conversation with them.
Yeah.
How does sexuality come in the mix at all?
Which is why I get so angry when people are like, oh, like all these pronouns, like making it so hard, like going in public, like every time I interact with somebody, they're using like I'm like, why does it matter? Why do you care? Just be respectful. Like I feel like it's not that hard.
Just use they them, dude. When I'm like even the tiniest bit unsure about what someone identifies with, I just use they them, because it's a non-binary pronoun.
Yeah.
And it's fine. Like
yeah, it's
like there's a neutral pronoun in the English language for a reason, and like it's not even because like okay, whether I'll offend someone and, how that'll, like, bounce back on me. But just, I use they, them pronouns for, when I'm confused about, how I should address someone, because it is the first thing that comes to my mind. I don't have to put a lot of thought into it.
Yeah, but even then, it's like, it's not even that much effort to just, like, put in a little bit of thought into, like, how you address somebody. If they're, like, wearing a name tag and it says their pronouns, like, why would you misgender them on purpose? It's like you're going out of your way to be malicious.
That is true.
Which is one of those things that, like, really bothers me.
If they, like, specify that, okay, I'd like to be, I prefer to be called this way. And
like, it's not that much work to be respectful.
Yeah, it isn't. Like, yeah, when you're unsure, just say they, them. But, like, when, someone has explicitly specified that they like, and it's even the fact that, if someone is really, offending you in a context like that, going out of their way, they really have to, like, be nitpicky, because when I'm talking to you, like, person to person, I'm addressing you in first person.
Yeah.
I'm hardly having to use your pronouns at all, because that's a third person thing.
Yeah.
Like, so if someone comes up to, a queer person and, like, offends them to their face and, like, misgenders them, they really have to go out of their way to be nitpicky about, like, referencing them in third person.
Yeah,
like,
it's like you're going out of your way.
It's a really intentional action.
Yeah, which is, like, and even then, it's like, the majority of the time, like, people are gonna be, like, if somebody misgenders me and I know that they don't mean it maliciously, like, I don't hold any ill will towards them. I'm like, I'll just be like, oh, by the way, like, I use XYZ pronouns, and they'll be like, oh, sorry, like, I didn't know that. Like, I'll be more careful about that next time.
That's how a mature conversation is supposed to be.
Or, like, people will be like, or people will use, like, she and then be like, oh, sorry, they, or something like that. Which, I mean, the initial, do I still not like when people automatically jump to, like, the most feminine of words? Sure, and, like, but I have really complicated feelings about gender regardless, so it's like, I don't really want to, those feel really personal. I don't want to explain those to every person.
Yeah, and
So
that
it's
is
like
completely fine, because at the end of the day, it is really personal. Like, you don't have to, like, every random person that you run into on the street, you shouldn't have to explain yourself to every one of them.
Yeah, like, I don't need anybody to understand me, I just need them to respect me. That's all.
And that is a pretty powerful statement.
Yeah.
And I feel like that should be common sense at the end of the day.
I hope someday it is.
I hope someday it is as well. And you were also talking about how, as a biologist, like, people use biology and science to, like, in a really bigoted manner.
It makes me so angry, because, like, as a scientist, like, there's biological basis in, like, gender not being a binary and being so much more complicated than just XX and XY, or just chromosomes or whatever. But even if we are talking about just chromosomes, like I said this before, like, you can have more than just XX or XY chromosomes. Like, intersex people exist.
Yeah, people are born intersex all the time.
And even then, like, science recognizes gender and sex as two separate things.
Yes, gender is social.
Yeah, gender is social. It's not, like, about biological characteristics necessarily. Like, sometimes, like, those feelings can be connected, obviously. But, like, when people are, like, so invasive about it, it's just like, I know that you don't understand this topic, and you're using it to be malicious on purpose. It's like, and then also they'll be like, it's funny because they only want to use that argument when it, like, supports their, like, bigoted statement they're trying to make, but then when I try and explain, like, why climate change is real, they're like, big science, it's so
big
fake.
Science.
And I'm like, okay, which one is it though? Like, is it's XX or XY, or is it science is fake? Which one is it? Pick one.
There's the same issue with vaccines as well.
Oh yeah, and it's interesting with the COVID vaccine. More people who, like, aren't necessarily anti-vax all the time were anti-COVID vaccine because they were like, mRNA, it's gonna change your DNA.
Yeah. And
I'm like, that's not how the central dogma works.
Oh, not even that. I feel like even mRNA is, like, a more advanced argument when it comes to the right. A lot of people were just like, okay, I go next to a, like, the moment I stand next to a 5G tower, I just, like, spontaneously combust. That was, like, their whole, like, argument.
That's so funny. But also just, like, if that were true, then, like, how are you here? I don't understand. Like, I just don't really understand that many arguments, honestly. Like, I was talking to, I love my job. I said this already, but, like,
and I'm really happy for you for that.
Yeah, but in my lab, my boss, like, the PI of my lab, has, like, our lab is, like, a joint lab with his wife. So I went with her also. It's so cute.
It is, yeah.
And they study the same thing. Like, it's so cute. It's
Did
adorable.
they meet there?
I don't know, actually.
You should ask them.
I do want to ask them.
Like, if it's appropriate.
Yeah, I don't want to be too invasive, but I am curious. But, like, she was telling me yesterday, she was like, while they do dissections, they like to listen to the news sometimes, or, like, podcasts or whatever. And she was listening to the news, and she was like, I just heard this news story about people who think that the storm in North Carolina was man-made to prevent Trump voters from being able to vote. And I was like, that's crazy, because why do you think that a storm that affects a whole state would only affect Trump voters when it affects everyone in the state?
Yeah, that is a good
so
point. That is a really good point.
Like, even if you, like, logically, how do you think that we could create a storm? But also, logically, why do you think it would only impact Trump voters?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand the train of thought there.
I mean, we could. Cloud seeding does exist. Like, it is a scientifically tried and tested phenomenon. Like, Dubai tried to, like, seed clouds, and, like, a while ago it led to severe storms. But at the same time, you're right about that. You know, something being carried out at that scale, people would know who did it. And at the same time, yeah, it impacts all sorts of people.
Yeah,
like, there's no district that's completely red or completely blue.
Yeah, no, like, there's a variety of people that exist in different contexts, and, like a whole state doesn't have only Trump voters or something. Like, I don't know, it was just, like, such a crazy argument. I was like, but the more that I thought about it, the more I was like, the same people who say that statement are also going to be the same people who are like, climate change isn't real, so I'm like, which one is it?
Yeah, I feel like that's just... their arguments are not even based on, like, any sort of sound logic. It's just, you know...
willful ignorance. They just
It's just based on this philosophy of trying to one-up you.
Yeah, and, like, I understand that, like, it feels good to feel right, and people want to feel like they're always in the right, but the reality of being a person and being human is you're not always going to be right. And sometimes it's better to be wrong than to be right, because it helps open up your mind and open up your perspective to other people. Because it's like, as a scientist, like, part of my job is to be wrong. And to,
exactly.
like,
We've been talking
mistakes.
about this.
Like,
you graduated as a bio major, you're a biologist now, I'm a math major, we're both people of STEM. And I like when there's big open questions presented to me.
For sure. And I love, like, when I get an experimental result that makes no sense, I'm like, man, how did this happen? Like, obviously I experience like being upset that the experiment didn't go as planned, but also I'm so curious. I'm like, what actually happened? Like, actually, I had an experiment happen like last week, 2 weeks ago. This was after I talked to you that first time. I ran a gel. I designed some primers for a specific knockout mouse line, and
this might be technically over my head, or like
a little bit maybe, but like
I'd still love to listen though.
The bands that appeared in the gel, like the size of the lines were not where they should have been, if that makes sense. Like the size of the. I don't mean to be too.
No,
technical.
thanks for dumbing it down for me.
But I was like, how is this even possible? Because if the deletion in the knockout mouse was where they said it would be, then those lines shouldn't have looked like that. So we sent off the PCR product that I ran the gel with for sequencing, and we found out that something on a different chromosome was being amplified instead of what should have been being amplified, because the sequences were just similar. So that was super interesting, and like everyone in the lab was like, wow, I wonder why that's, like, everybody was so curious and was helping me like get through that and figure out what was wrong.
I also like how that's such a supportive community.
Oh yeah, my lab is amazing. They're all very supportive, and they were all like, and we were all trying to figure out how to like send off the PCR product for sequencing, because like we were like, oh, do we need to purify it? Do we need to like? It was really fun. They were all very sweet, and it's nice to feel like people have your back.
And I feel like that's what I would want in a workspace, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Something that I can, wake up every morning with, like, I would love to work here. I'm so happy with what I do, and I'm so happy with the people that I interact with on a daily basis. Like, I feel like, that, as we were talking about, like, that forms such a large chunk of your life, like, in a day-to-day context, and in, like, the amount of time in your life that you're going to spend on it, like, amount of years. Why wouldn't I want to be respected in a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, and I also, it's like, I love doing things for other people when they ask me to at work. Like, of course I'll get your mice for you. Of course I'll do, like, this little task for you. Like, we do things for each other and, like, help each other feel supported, and that creates such, like, a good vibe. It just makes me really happy.
I'm happy for you.
Yeah. I am also excited because I did my, like, first dissection by myself, which was like a more technically challenging dissection, and I think I did a pretty good job, and I'm excited to do another one, which should be coming up hopefully pretty soon, probably by the end of the month. So I'm excited to get to do more. Because one of my coworkers, well, I say coworkers, but she's a grad student. She gave me mice that she didn't need anymore, and they were planning on having me get to just have those to use for practice, which is really nice and sweet. Like, she could have just, like, not kept them, but she kept them for me.
That is so sweet. I came up because, like, we were talking about how, like, phone addiction and, like, just, like, the dopamine burnout it's such a thing that affects us on a day-to-day basis. I read somewhere that a lot of that is because just like the brightest colors, because there's so much color and like there's so much input going in your brain, it automatically signals your dopamine receptors to like create a response. So I just like went to my accessibility settings and I made everything black and white.
I feel like I should do that after this.
That is a good hack, but like because it feels like every single time I'm on Instagram or TikTok trying to scroll through like short form videos, it feels like a sad reel being played because it's in black and white, and I automatically don't feel like scrolling on Instagram after that.
Yeah, and I feel like I just want to do like more useful things with my time, and especially because like I kind of talked about this before. Like I have pretty severe depression. Like it's pretty bad. Like if I'm feeling just so down that nothing feels fun and nothing feels worth doing, and it's like I'm just doom scrolling, like I feel like that just makes it worse.
Yeah, I've been there.
It does not make it better. So it's like, it's really hard. And I feel like also like, because I don't know if this is what this is from actually, but like, I was talking about this before, I don't know if you've experienced this, but like, I feel like people in our age group are so much worse at like maintaining friendships and relationships.
Yeah.
And like communicating and like
we were talking about
forming close relationships with each other. I feel
especially
like
taking initiative.
Yeah, like taking initiative. Like it's really rare that you have friends who like plan things all the time and like really seek you out. Like I this could also just be like my personal experiences, but like I feel like it's pretty. It's like I always have to take initiative and try and make things happen and like create plans, and it's like people, even if I do that, like people will cancel or flake or be like, oh, I don't really feel like it, or like not really text that often, but it's like they'll spend all their time on their phone. So it's like it's just kind of sad almost. It's like it's almost like that dopamine, those dopamine hits are like replacing like more meaningful social interaction for people in our age group, which is kind of depressing.
And it is also like that has become a necessary evil because like so much of our social life is on these applications.
Yeah.
Like it's on these apps and it's on these websites, and we just it's hard to stay connected. Like I remember last year, the head of the podcast section at this newspaper that I was a good friend of, her name is Kelly, and like the first couple times I met her, I was like, you know, as one does, I'm like, okay, can I get your Instagram, or like, what's your number? And she's like, I don't have social media, and I thought that was just like a sign of disinterest. And after a while, you know, once I was hanging out with her, she told me that no, she actually genuinely doesn't have social media, and she actually wrote an article for the Collegian talking about how she just like went AWOL from everywhere. And I feel like something like if a person were to do that, it would stick out as an anomaly. It is just become so accepted to be, you know, 24/7 on these apps, and like just because that is, you know, that has taken the form of social availability.
Yeah.
In a certain way, and just being in real, like just being there for someone in real life is not enough anymore.
Yeah, which is kind of sad. Although I do love, like, don't get me wrong, like I do love like the luxury of modern technology where it's like my mom might be like XYZ hours away, but you can still call her, or like you can still text her, or whatever, or like you can like call friends who you're far away from, or text them, or whatever. Like that is nice, or like FaceTiming people or something. Like that's really nice because you can like actually see them and talk to them. Like that's really lovely, and that creates like more social interaction than you have otherwise if you're far away from somebody. But like the actual social media apps and like scrolling and stuff, it like
whoever designed the endless scroll mechanism, I've got a special place of hatred in my heart just for them.
It's so true. Like
But you can understand their perspective as well, like why they came up with that, because it's like keep you hooked onto that app and like keep you hooked onto that service, and then it, you know, you're getting them more ad time, and it's pretty, like from a capitalist perspective, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, but it's still really sad. Like,
it is.
I want to spend my time in more productive ways, like being artistic and making memories with people. And it's also like with the like it being really difficult to like get people together for social interactions. It's like even when you do like organize things with friends, it's like really often you're just like catching up and not actually making new memories. So which
That
like
is true.
and I feel like it's fine to have some friendships like that, and it's fine to have that every once in a while. But if that's like your entire relationship is just like dumping on each other every time you see each other every like once
Yeah.
every like couple of months, then it turns into just like a and you're not making any new memories, then it's like what do you there like I want to make memories with people and not just like
It's sad to put it that way, but the novelty wears out. It feels like, and there's also the person association as well. Like every single time I'm talking to a person, I don't want to have that association that okay, I'm just gonna get a trauma dump, even though
Yeah.
I want to be there for that person. But like I have had friendships wherein it just felt like any advice that I was giving to the person or any way that I was trying to help the person, they just wouldn't
they wouldn't even listen.
they
Probably.
wouldn't listen, and like they would just come the next week and like do the exact opposite of what I advised them to do, and they would just come with a whole new heap of stuff that went wrong in their life, and they would just like trauma dump all over again, which is like I want to be there for that person, but at the same time I want them to realize that I am a living breathing human being as well.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is a slippery slope to follow. Like that's a tightrope walk. Like I want to be there for that person, but at the same time, I don't want them to trauma dump on me 24/7. But yeah, I do feel like this generation, just because of how chronically online we are, we're just having a hard time like being actually humanly social.
Yeah. Which is just really sad, and also like I talked about this before when I worked at the CWC when I was a student, the Center for Women in Community, which really great resources available. And I had a conversation with my bosses about like the lack of third spaces, because they started,
that is an interesting one as well.
Yeah, which they brought back like this thing called like Product Self, where people can give like basically like informational like lectures or teach somebody how to do like an activity or whatever, like as a community, like as a community space. And I was talking about how valuable it is and how we should try and have it more often because, like, our generation doesn't have that many third spaces. Like, our phones are our third space.
Yeah, oh my god.
Which is, like...
I never saw it like that, but now that you say it, it makes so much sense. In a
like,
morbid way.
Yeah, because, like, you have work and home, and then you're supposed to have that third place, but I feel like their third place is the phone now. Which is kind of sad, because it's like that even for my parents, and I say parents, but I mean my mom and her boyfriend. Like, they will go to work and come home and then just, like, eat dinner and shower and watch TV and go on their phones, then go to sleep and then do it all over again. And that's just their whole life on repeat. And I'm like, that sounds like...
It sounds like, yeah, I mean, like, it's like that meme, like, I can't wait to, like, get off work and I can, like, when I can turn that big evil screen on my work desk off and I can go back home and I can turn on my little good screen.
Yeah. It's just sad. Which is also, like, something that I like about my job, actually, is that I don't have too many things that are virtual, and even when I do, it's, like, there's an objective. I really like having, like, an objective and, like, feeling like I'm achieving something.
That is true. Like, one of the ways that I've felt like I can come out of that depressive phase is to keep myself busy in things that I like. Because then it just gives me a reason to doom scroll all day, and that's not a good
Yeah,
feeling.
I agree. I've been I taught myself how to crochet, which has been really nice.
That must be hard. I felt like
It's hard.
Yeah.
I like crocheting though. It's really fun. I definitely recommend to people who like to. I'm a very like fidgety person. And
Is this a crocheted sweater as well?
I didn't crochet this, but
Okay.
maybe someday I'll be able to crochet something like this.
It is crocheted though, right?
Yeah, I think so. Either crocheted or knit.
Okay.
One or the other.
I'm just too much of a novice to like be able to tell the difference. It's good. It looks good though.
Thank you. I love crochet. I'm making a scarf right now.
That is so sweet.
And I've made a bunch of little stuffed mice. Just because I had a bunch of like fluffy gray yarn and I didn't know what else to do with it. And my job, I work with mice.
It's
like
pretty mouse
yeah,
colony.
like part of my job is also like maintaining the mouse colony. So I spend like a few hours every day with mice, like when I'm at work, and I love hanging out with the mice.
Do you give them names as well?
No, I can't.
Why?
Well,
You don't want to get too attached to them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which like that is a pretty controversial part of animal research is like the worst part of the job is that you have to kill them sometimes. Yeah. Well, most of the time. Like, the animals don't stick around for more than, like, I feel like the oldest one that we have is probably, like, a year, maybe a little over that. And I know a lot of people would be very unhappy with me for, like, working in that type of environment.
I mean, but it's better than human trials.
Yeah, I just think about it like, I'm working with lethal knockouts, so it's like, the homozygous version of these genes is lethal, so we're investigating why they're lethal, and that's helping human disease, and helping, like, human fertility as well. So I just think about, like, how much these mice are helping people. And we also, they're very well taken care of. They're very well taken care of.
So to round it all up, there's, over the course of this podcast that I've learned that there's many sides of you. Mm-hmm. And you are, you know, a multi-hyphenate person. You sing, and I don't think you talk much about that.
I love singing. Singing is so fun. Music is something that makes me feel, like, the most happy, even when I'm feeling, like, really...
I feel like you're not human if you don't like music.
It's so funny, because my twin sister, her boyfriend, doesn't like music. Crazy? Like, no type of music. I was like, how is that even possible? Although, I will say, because my sister also sings, he asked her to sing for him once, and he did cry, because he was like, it's so beautiful.
Yes, he likes it.
Because he felt, like, connected to her. But, like, he's like, it's just noise. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Just listen to some classical, then.
Yeah, I was like, I literally don't understand that point of view at all. Like, certainly there are genres that aren't my favorite, but I can understand why people like every genre that exists. And I like music in general. So it just does not make sense.
I feel like there's music in everything. Like, you go out and, like, the wild, and, like, there's you know the rhythmic manner in which, like, a cricket chirps. That is music to me.
Yeah, true. Yeah. I was like, that's so weird, especially dating somebody who's, like, a musician. I'm like, what is happening?
Oh, your sister is also a musician?
Yeah, like, she's, like, I gave her, like, a MIDI, like, a keyboard for Christmas for,
I have a MIDI back home.
Or, no, not Christmas, our birthday, which is in July.
Is that the Akai MPK?
I don't know what kind of...
The red one?
I don't know which one I gave her.
Okay.
I don't remember the brand. It was a nice one. I did a lot of research. I just don't remember exactly which model it was. But she's been loving it, like, making music and stuff, and she's been doing such a great job. I'm so proud of her.
That is so sweet.
Yeah, I love my twin sister. I love being a twin.
And yeah, you also said that, I don't want to take that out of context, but you getting tattoos was also partly, like, in a desire to, like, be different?
Yeah.
Like, be perceived as different from your twin?
Yeah, I think, like, as an identical twin, like, individuality and identity is something that you think about from, like, a really, really young age compared to the average person. Just because,
before you can even comprehend what that means.
Yeah, because, like, when you're an identical twin and you're young, people treat you as the same person all the time.
Yeah.
And are like, oh, like, the twins, the girls. Or I had people be like...
Like, you're this hive mind.
Or, like, yeah. Or, like, they would call me by her name and then be like, oh, it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong.
That's so rude.
Which is crazy. Like, when I was young. Like, that was exactly how it was, and I hated that. Hated that.
Because I'm assuming you went to the same schools and everything.
Yeah. And we had a lot of the same friends growing up, etc. But it's also nice because it's like I have a built-in best friend, too. Like, I'll always be there for her, and she'll always be there for me, which is nice.
There's a stereotype that twins tend to have, like, a psychic connection.
Actually, I have a fun story about this. Like, when I was born with a birth defect that my twin sister doesn't have, even though we're genetically identical, because it was an error in, like, cell machinery, basically, when I was forming. Like, I was, like, an embryo. So, like, one of my kidneys has, like, extra parts, which is so goofy. I mean, it doesn't...
Goofy.
It is goofy. It doesn't hurt me at all. When I was younger, like, I used to have to, like, go get blood drawn and stuff really often to make sure that nothing was wrong. And that was for, like, a few years. But there was one time where I was, like, really little, and I was getting my blood drawn in the other room, and this was before we could, like, understand, like, what was going on. We were, like, 2 or 3. And my sister was having, like, a tantrum in the other room, and she was like, why are you, like, having a tantrum? And she was like, my arm, it hurts! And she was, like, pointing out the spot, and it was, like, the same spot in the same arm that I was getting my blood drawn in the other room. Isn't that crazy?
So she didn't know that
like,
you were having your blood drawn? Like,
no, because she was too young to understand that. But isn't that crazy?
It is, yeah.
It's insane. My mom's always, like, twins are, like, she always believed that. It was also really interesting because, like, lots of cultures consider identical twins to be good luck. So, like, when we were little, random people on the street would ask for pictures with us.
Oh.
Yeah, for like good luck.
That's pretty sweet.
I know, isn't that sweet? I think that's really cool. Because, I mean, like, as an American, thinking about it, like, out of context, maybe you're like, oh, like, that's kind of strange. But I feel like that's really sweet. Like, they're like, oh, these people are good luck. I want their good luck, too. I think that's cute.
That is cute.
Yeah.
That's really adorable. I felt like, so yeah, we're talking about this, and like, you've got a lot of sides to you. You're a singer, and you are a poet, and you work in biology. You're a scientist, and you know, the sum of your experiences has made who you are today. As with every one of us, and yours are unique to you. And you know, your experiences with your sister, your mother, your partner, like as a queer person, as an alternative person, with your friend, all of them have made you who you are today. And I'm happy for you that you're doing well, and you seem to be on an upward trajectory. And yeah, and how do you think that, you know, it doesn't have to be visible in the way you dress and the way you present yourself, but especially in the context of the subject material over here, tattoos and body art, how do you think, you know, it convey, like, you convey all of that as like a first impression? What's your opinion of tattoos as like a first impression of who you are to someone you're meeting?
I feel like they help get across a lot of like my alternative like interests, like the types of music I like, the types of media that I like, my viewpoints on certain things, even like political views, like people can kind of guess based on the way I look, which is kind of nice.
That you're lovely.
Yeah. People are more open-minded and accepting up here, because like I've lived in California, I've lived in Iowa, I've lived in Nebraska, I lived here, and I've lived in every place for like an equal amount of time. And Massachusetts, I feel like, has definitely been the most open-minded. Because I remember when I was a kid and I lived in California, like, my two best friends when I was in kindergarten were this pair of twins who were immigrants from Mexico, and they would teach us Spanish. And
was that a point of connection for you that you were both twins?
Yeah, and they were fraternal twins, but
okay.
It was still, like, really fun to, like, play with them, and they were the same age. And
okay, so they weren't identical.
No, but it was still, like, really fun, and, like, we enjoyed hanging out with them a lot, but, like, kids in our class would be, like, racist to kindergartners. Like, we were in kindergarten. Like, they were learning that from somewhere. I'm not really sad. It's depressing.
It's sad as well because kids are the purest creatures out there, and there's no way for them to like tell.
Yeah.
Like obviously, a white kid might walk up to a black person and be like, "Why do you look, different from me?" But they don't mean that in a malicious way.
Yeah.
The only way in which a kid would be malicious if they're indoctrinated to be malicious towards someone.
Which is also something I like about my tattoos, because it's like, I know my niece and my nephew, their family is more conservative. My family is more conservative. And they see my hair and my tattoos and, like, the way that I dress as, like, cool and interesting. They don't see it as, like, weird. Because...
That is nice.
Because they've known me since they were really little, and I've always dressed this way. So it's, like my niece, she was like, I want to have, like, purple hair like Auntie, because my hair is purple at the time. It's, like, a dark purple. It's, like, purple-black. Or, like, she'll wear black and be like, I look like Auntie today, or something like that, which I think is so cute. And I just like being like, I remember when I was, like, a kid and looking at alternative people and being like, oh my god, they look so cool. And, like, I want to be that for other people growing up.
Because I feel like there is, like, a positive stereotype associated with that, like, for instance, bikers tend to be really alternative. And
I love bikes.
And bikers tend to be really nice people despite how, like, intimidating they look.
Yeah, absolutely agree. My mom was, I think I said, maybe, did I say this? My mom was a biker growing up, so, like, I've ridden a bunch of motorcycles before. And, like, as a kid, like, a bunch of her friends were bikers, which I'd love to learn how to ride a motorcycle. I've got, like, my two flavors. My two flavors are, like, hyper femme, like, goth, and, like, biker dude. Those are my two flavors. And I also just love motorcycles. I think they're really cool. And I can affirm bikers are usually really nice.
That's nice. And yeah, I just wouldn't want to have, like, a bike for myself because I can't imagine how inconvenient it must be when it rains.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I've seen bikers, like, huddle under, like, flyovers just because...
During storms? Yeah, you always gotta check the weather before you bike. Otherwise you could end up in a really bad situation. everyone in my life's like, please don't, like, it's so scary and dangerous.
That's what my mom says.
Yeah, that's what my mom says also.
The
Even though
only-
she was a biker. I was
Yeah.
like, you were a biker.
and I know she's coming from such a pure place, but like the only reason I would, be like a person, who has a car as a default mode of transport, I have my own car back home, is because I can listen to music in a car, I can be in an air-conditioned environment in a car, and I can be I can be safe from the weather. And it's not because it's safer.
Yeah.
It's just because it's more convenient.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
But yeah, it's so yeah, we were talking about how, you view tattoos as your first impression to other people.
Yeah. I hope that other people, like, see my tattoos and their first impression is somebody who's open-minded, who's artistic, who's... I kind of like that my appearance isn't, like, you probably wouldn't guess I'm a scientist just by looking at me. Which I kind of like, because I feel like I have, like, a varied perspective on life. I don't know. And I also hope that people... what I hope most is that people feel inspired when they look at me.
That is so sweet. I feel like, yeah, I get that. Like, I'm a math major, and I walk up to people, and they're like, and like whenever I'm having a conversation with someone new, and they ask me, the generic icebreaker question, what are you majoring in? And I just like playing the guessing game. And more often than not, they guess something on the creative side, like, okay, something like fine arts maybe, or something like, the humanities or something, which is really different because as an Indian, people mostly guess comp sci or computer engineering just because those fields are like chock full of Indians. But I feel like I've never experienced that, and all my other Indian friends have, because just people tell me that I just like wouldn't have guessed from your dressing sense that you're someone from STEM, like you're like on the more creative side, and I take that as a compliment, honestly.
Yeah, me too. But I also will say it means that, like, people in my field at least sometimes will assume that I'm stupid. And
Yeah, I've had that as well.
Which, I mean, I know that I'm not stupid. I mean, I graduated from a very hard degree with a very high GPA.
3.9.
Yeah.
Respect.
3.98.
Respect.
Yeah. I'm proud of myself because
That's
took a lot of
basically a
work.
4.
Yeah, I took a lot of work. I didn't get
Was
a
that
B.
summa cum laude?
I don't actually know what it ended up being, but I did get a B my entire college experience,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm proud of myself for. I will say, I mean, not to say that, like, you need to be smart to be, like, worth anything in your field, because I think everybody has, like, different perspectives to offer, and, like, my value doesn't come from how smart I am. Like, I'm a person with inherent value.
But you've worked hard.
Yeah, I did work hard, and I feel like that's something to be proud of.
Absolutely it is. So yeah, I've definitely felt that as well, that, in a professional setting, people just like, are like, okay, this person just seems less serious because of how they dress.
Yeah.
And my mom said that affected her, even though she's on alternative. She's a civil servant, and she works in the government, and she's an interpreter. And she just is more fashion conscious than most other people. And she told me that she's felt that, some people taking her less seriously because, she came across as vain. And I felt like, to me, like, when I experienced something like that, because I like putting effort into the way I dress, I like putting thought into the way I dress and present myself, I look good, I feel good. I don't think of it as any more than that.
Yeah, I don't think that's vanity. I feel like that's self-care.
It is self-care, exactly. That is such a good way of looking at it. And I feel like, in terms of other people, if someone perceives me as, a lesser person, or like, or someone, makes an alright judgment about me just on the way I look, they weren't worthwhile to interact with in the first place.
True. I feel like that's a them problem.
Yeah, it's a them problem. It's not a me problem. Like, the trash took itself out. That's what I like to like saying that. Okay, that just it's a weeder. My appearance just acted as a weeder, like acted as a filter.
Yeah,
like
that's what I always
it filtered
say.
the bad apple out.
Yeah, like when people are like, how are you going to get jobs with, like, tattoos and piercings and dyed hair and stuff? And I'm like, well, if a job wouldn't hire me because of those things, then it's not somewhere I'd want to work.
Well, ratio, you already have a job.
Yeah, so true. I do already have a job. Which also is, like, dress alternatives, like, expensive. Like,
that is true.
People who dress alternative need to have jobs, otherwise they can't dress that way.
Yeah, that is true. That is
like,
true.
tattoos and piercings also really expensive. Hair dye, expensive.
That is true. I'm happy I have naturally black hair, but like if I were to want to color my hair a different color, I would have to bleach it first.
Yeah.
Because it's naturally dark, and I wouldn't want to do that because that's gonna fuck with my hair texture.
Yep.
And I don't want to do that.
Confirm. A lot of my hair now actually isn't bleached. I'm sure some of it's still bleached, like underneath the black dye, but a lot of it's like, when your hair is lighter than the color that you're dyeing it, which I'm naturally a blonde, which is interesting because it's funny because people are always like, oh, I'd never guess that just by looking at you, which I feel like I definitely would guess that by looking at me, especially if my roots are grown out, obviously. But like, even if it's like fully dyed, like my coworkers were like, I thought you just had naturally black hair, and I was like, no.
That's what I assumed. That's what I assumed the first time I met you. I was like, I think you just like have naturally black hair.
No, it's naturally like pretty light, I would say. But I feel like it's nice to not have to bleach it before I dye it darker because if
I can see the blonde ends coming out. Yeah.
I gotta re-dye it soon. I'm waiting until a little closer to Halloween because my costumes are themed around my hair colors mostly.
But yeah, it's been great to have you on, and I believe you have had like great conversations about who you are and how you see yourself through the lens of how you like carry yourself, and I believe carrying yourself the way you want to is integral to feeling confident. And I feel like we bonded a lot on like certain shared experiences, feeling different from the crowd, and how body art can be like just a comfort factor and a unifying factor through all of that.
Yeah.
So I hope you've had a good time.
Yeah, I definitely have. Thank you for having me.
And I swear this will be the last retake we do.
Okay.
Because the last episode didn't turn out the way we wanted to, but yeah, I have got a good feeling about this one.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So once again, this has been Ishaan and
Kay
for the Collegians Tattoo Talks podcast. Good evening and see you later.